Thank you very much, and good afternoon, and welcome to this final EU presidency under the Italian chair and of ECOFIN. Today's meeting has been very intense, but also very fruitful. We have reached an important set of results that will impact positively on the way the EU functions. Let me quickly remind what we have decided, and also, as was anticipated, just to recap on some of the results that were achieved during the Italian presidency very, very briefly. We have today reached a political agreement on a binding anti-abuse clause to be included in the parent subsidiary directive as part of efforts to clamp down on corporate tax avoidance by corporate groups. This clause will prevent misuses of the directive and ensure greater consistency in its application to different member states. Still about taxation, we have also adopted a revised directive on administrative cooperation in the field of direct taxation with a view of extending the scope of Directive 2011-16 for the mandatory automatic exchange of information between tax authorities. This revised directive will enforce authorities to prevent and fight situations where a taxpayer seeks to hide abroad capital or assets which are on which tax is due. A third important agreement has been reached about an implementing regulation defining contributions to be paid by banks to the EU's Single Resolution Fund, the SRF. This is a crucial step towards the implementation of a single resolution mechanism, the second building block of the banking union after the single supervisory mechanism already in operation since November. The Single Resolution Fund will substantially increase the resilience of the European banking sector, and we are confident that the increasing banking market integration at the European level will benefit citizens and business and help create jobs. Also, during the Italian presidency, we have agreed on 6 more results on the financial side. I have a list, but I will not mention the Insurance Mediation Directive, revision of occupational pensions, and so forth. Also, let me add the list of achievements which was not directly discussed by ECOFIN, but which was achieved yesterday and this morning. This is the agreement about the EU budget for 2014 and 2015, reached thanks to a strong cooperation between the Presidency, the Commission and the European Parliament. So this is a very important result which deals with existing outstanding arrears, respecting the financial efforts countries are making in reaching their fiscal targets and providing resources for growth and jobs. So this is a very important result which has gone through a very difficult trialogue process. Let me now quickly mention a point after, and then I will give the floor to Vice President Katainen and President Hoyer. It's about investment. You will recall that at the beginning of the EU presidency, we put on the table growth and jobs as the main priorities to be tackled by EU action. And we identified in 3 pillars the overall growth strategy for that. Structural reforms, exploiting and deepening the single market and further integration, and boosting investment, both private and public. This has been indeed one of the key elements of the discussion during the presidency, and of course it will continue to be so with the new initiatives, the new welcome initiatives launched by the Commission. So this has been a discussion topic today, as it has been in many ECOFIN meetings before that, and we are now entering in a new, very active phase. And on this, I would like to ask Vice President Katainen and President Hoyer from the European Investment Bank to give you more details on what this plan and this action is about.
Okay, thank you very much, Pier Carlo. I would like to congratulate you and thank for excellent presidency. Also, there are lots of people in your presidency team. Thank you very much for excellent job. Also, I would like to thank the issue you raised just a few seconds ago. Without your very hard effort to raise investment issue on the agenda, we wouldn't be here. So thank you very much. It's been very nice to work very closely with you. So today we had a very good day for investment plan, Commission's investment plan. We got very strong support from ECOFIN Council to the issues, to the whole triangle. And it was very nice to hear the feedback from the ministers who said that this comprehensive approach is exactly what is needed. Like many ministers said, this is not a one-off stimulus measure. Instead, this is a structural plan, structural reform on European level. Like you have already heard before, the investment plan is a triangle. The first angle is liquidity angle, meaning that we will establish a new fund for investments, supporting private investments, crowding in private money for riskier projects. Also to SMEs and to enterprises who are willing to get more equity in order to grow. And this is something we have been doing together with very close cooperation with EIB, and the president of EIB will elaborate more about this issue in his contribution. So this is the first angle, liquidity. We try to, or we want to encourage private sector to invest more in riskier areas of our economies, and also to wider in geographical terms than what the private sector has done so far during the last few years. The lending capacity of EFSI is around 60 billion at the moment. Of course, if we can get more capital or guarantees from member states, the lending capacity would grow, but currently it's 60 billion. The second angle is a project pipeline, which is supposed to create a transparent pipeline of viable, liable and well-structured projects, which could help private sector to pick and choose which projects they are willing to invest in. I have met several investment bankers, institutional investors who have said that this is exactly what they have been waiting for, because they say that their duty is to invest in infrastructure. But due to the fact that there is not enough well-structured, liable projects, it's been quite difficult for them, and now we want to change this. The third angle is the single market part. We also got very strong support from ministers that there are shortages in the European single market for various reasons, and now we have to create better single market in order to boost economic growth and in order to create a new business surrounding for small and medium-sized companies to create new jobs, but also products. Like I have said a couple of times before, European small and medium-sized enterprises which are producing digital services or products to the clients, they have excellent single market in the United States, but unfortunately not in Europe. And this is because single market was created before digital content. So that's why we have to work very closely with this. Energy sector, capital market, and public procurement are the areas in which we need to deepen our single market and give more opportunities for SMEs to grow. So, Pier Carlo, thank you very much for our cooperation, and I wish you all the best in the future.
Pier Carlo, and I'd also like to join Jyrki Katainen on his remarks on the great achievement of the Italian presidency and your personal leadership, for which we are very, very grateful. Today we had a really deep discussion about the investment plan, the Juncker plan. By the way, Jean-Claude should be congratulated on his birthday today, and we did some work in order to make him happier, I guess. The new plan will have to be presented to the European Council next week, and then I assume that the European Council will support it. We'll have to go into a legislative and process that leads to a new regulation. So it is still some time to go until we have the whole thing set up. But if the European Council does not interfere with a negative vote next week, then we are going to immediately start, because one of the advantages of the setup foreseen now is that although the formal structures of the fund, which is going to be formally a managed account within the bank, will take some time, the bank, with its expertise and structures, can begin immediately, and we want to show early successes. For us, the work on this issue has begun at the beginning of this year when we came up with a study on investment and innovation gaps in Europe. That was the wake-up call for many and also for us, saying that something has to be done. And then we had a discussion in the different meetings of the European Council and the ECOFIN Council, and there was very often the remark, well, there might be investment needs, but there are no projects. So we were mandated by the ECOFIN in the informal meeting in Milan to come up with a study on investment options. And we collected investment ideas from the member states and came up with this famous list. Now, this list is extremely impressive, but that being on that list does not mean a project will certainly be financed or be financeable. So we now have to go into the project appraisal. And that will, of course, be done in a very, very diligent way. And there are two criteria which are dominant. On the one hand, viability, sustainability, and impact. And the other criterion is speed, because it doesn't make sense to talk about investment that take a preparation of 10 years. We want to see first results soon. So we are now going to scrutinize the list according to these principles and then come up with proposals. The new setup of the fund, of this managed account, will be such that we mobilize external expertise in order to have a look at the projects, in particular the risk profile of the projects. Before then, these approved projects, approved by the investment committee, will have to be presented to the governing bodies of the bank, whose accountability vis-à-vis the shareholders and vis-à-vis the European Parliament and the Court of Auditors remains, of course, intact. So this is a setup that guarantees quality of the projects and hopefully also high speed in delivery. What I'd like to add is that we should not look exclusively at the question of infrastructure and innovation. We also have to see that a considerable part of this package is devoted to SMEs, the financing of small and medium-sized companies. An additional 5 billion volume will go into this field, the backbone of European industry. And finally, I'd like to mention advisory services. They are more and more key to investment successes in Europe because member states and private investors sometimes simply need technical, economic, and financial advice, and the bank is very well prepared to do this. Now we are going to set up a window for advisory services together with the European Commission, and I think this is going to help identify, improve, and speed up projects which we will take from the pipeline, which, by the way, is not a closed thing. We expect further proposals for investments to be included in that pipeline over the next weeks and months.
Of Corriere della Sera, a question from the Presidency, from the Vice President in Italian, please. President, for both of you, the Presidency and the Vice President of the Commission, for both of you is this question. Le volevo chiedere, lei ha parlato di successi, di risultati, ma noi vediamo che la crescita in Europa o è debole o alcuni paesi come l'Italia sono in recessione. L'occupazione non va bene. Gli investimenti li vediamo solo nelle parole e nei progetti e per degli importi che sono veramente diciamo, imbarazzanti se si considera che vanno ripartiti per 28 paesi. Non credete come Presidenza e come Commissione europea che vadano temporaneamente sospesi i vincoli di bilancio dell'Unione Europea per consentire ai Paesi membri che sono in difficoltà di investire in una maniera adeguata in modo da rilanciare efficacemente la crescita e l'occupazione. Relativamente, come una seconda domanda, se posso, al Presidente Padoan, visto che ieri non ci ha aggiornato su cosa è successo all'Eurogruppo, ci conferma che l'Italia potrebbe considerare individualmente la possibilità di non rispettare il vincolo del 3% esattamente come sta facendo la Francia per investire appunto nel rilancio della crescita e dell'occupazione.
Okay, thank you very much. The normal level of investment in Europe should be somewhat 300 billion higher level than it is today. It would be sustainable level. 300 billion additional per year is something like which can be seen sustainable level of investment which is needed. And everybody understands that this cannot be done by raising public debt. So our focus cannot be maximizing taxpayers' burden. Our focus cannot be maximizing the public debt. What we have to focus is to do things, reforms, and European measures which will mobilize private sector to invest in Europe. And that is the reason why we have investment plan. There's the single market part, which of course takes some time. But then there's a project pipeline which can be done relatively fast, and then additional risk money in order to mobilize private money to come to the investments in Europe. So if the world was so easy that maximizing taxpayers' burden and public debt would solve everything, then let's do it. But we don't happen to believe in this. So that's why we have to find the right ways to encourage private sector to do normal things. Trust in Europe, trust in our member states, and do what they normally are doing. So that's why, I mean, I don't believe in debt-based or debt-driven stimulus, because many countries cannot afford to do it. There's a risk that some country, if did it, would lose their confidence, and it would have a negative impact to growth also. Thank you.
Per quanto riguarda le domande che mi sono state rivolte direttamente, a parte il fatto che io non vi ho aggiornato personalmente, ma sicuramente lo abbiamo fatto come Ministero, la crescita è fondamentale per l'Italia, visto soprattutto l'onere del debito che ha, e la via d'uscita dal debito è la crescita, non ci sono scorciatoie. La crescita non si ottiene con la bacchetta magica, ma si ottiene soprattutto per un paese come l'Italia, attraverso la combinazione di riforme strutturali che devono aggredire ostacoli che si sono accumulati in due decenni, deve stimolare gli investimenti privati e deve continuare a consolidare in modo growth friendly, cioè favorevole alla crescita, il suo bilancio pubblico. In altre parole, è importante il sentiero di aggiustamento di finanza pubblica che continua, perché noi saremo nel 2015 al 2,6% e continua nel miglioramento della sua composizione. Tagli di tasse finanziati da tagli di spese e uno stretto collegamento delle spese, dell'uso dei soldi pubblici che sono limitati, con le riforme strutturali. Valga per tutti il Jobs Act da una parte, dal lato delle riforme, e le risorse per l'abbattimento del tax wedge, del cuneo fiscale sul costo del lavoro e incentivi all'assunzione, nonché risorse per le misure di sostegno, gli unemployment benefits, cioè le misure di sostegno. Detto questo, pensare che sfondare il tetto del 3% esplicitamente possa produrre più crescita è profondamente sbagliato. Sbagliato dal punto di vista della fattualità economica, perché produrrebbe un'immediata inversione di tendenza del debito, produrrebbe un'immediata reazione negativa sui mercati finanziari e quindi alla fine l'effetto sulla crescita sarebbe esattamente il contrario e arriverebbe immediatamente a colpirci, ci verrebbe immediatamente addosso e sarebbe un onere che non possiamo sicuramente permetterci. Questo al di là del fatto che le regole vanno rispettate. Quindi le rispondo sia sul piano del rispetto delle regole, sia sul piano della cosiddetta convenienza economica. La convenienza economica ci dice esattamente il contrario.
Marina Bob from EU Observer. Question for Mr. Katainen. I was wondering what the atmosphere was in the Council when you presented this initiative and the task force report, and whether any member state has pledged or indicated that it might also chip in? And also on the independent selection committee, is that something that you now see as a potential contentious point when you come up with legislation on the fund? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know how credible it is if I'm commenting about the atmosphere. Maybe Pier Carlo could give more objective view, but I got a very positive feeling because many ministers said that it's good that it's not one of stimulus measure. Instead, there are three angles which complement each other, and when implementing efficiently, it will make a permanent change. So my interpretation was that it was taken quite well, and also that the credibility of the package was there. Then member states' contributions, I don't have any promises yet, but let's put it this way, I've been quite glad that our phones have rung. So many member states want to know more about details, and we are providing details, everybody. And I don't know what to expect, but it's possible that there will be contributions from the member states. But we wanted to build this package so that it can function, it can create positive results even without member states' contribution. But of course, if some countries want to contribute, it's always strengthen the impact of our effort. The final point, independent selection of the process, it's very important fundament because it's if there's thinking that projects which could get financing from either from EIB or EFSI are selected politically, then it would destroy the reputation of financing or banking, because our aim is to crowd in private money, and the use of EFSI or EFSI just fulfill the shortages in market financing. So that's why independent, very rigorous assessment is very important.
So we go to the next question.
Giuseppina Paterniti della RAI, please for the Minister Padoan. In Italian, please for television exigenze. Dunque, Ministro, ho visto questo documento prodotto da Francia e Germania sugli investimenti che si propone di creare un'area di sviluppo franco-tedesca puntando a rafforzare anche il mercato interno e quindi in una visione complessiva. Una delle priorità per loro è che i progetti presentati siano progetti transnazionali per gli investimenti e per attirare per l'appunto, per creare, insomma, lavorare nella direzione indicata dall'Europa. Vorrei sapere quanti altri paesi hanno prodotto diciamo, progetti comuni, quindi che abbiano il carattere transnazionale, se secondo lei è un modello da seguire e se dall'altro verso oppure rischia di limitare quei paesi che invece hanno presentato solo progetti nazionali per gli investimenti.
Questa è una domanda a cui credo anche il Presidente Hoyer potrà dare un contributo. L'ammontare complessivo di progetti presentati dai Paesi europei è di 1,3 trilioni di euro. L'Italia ha fatto la sua parte, alcuni di questi progetti sono di natura transnazionale. È importante che i progetti siano selezionati sulla base di criteri di efficienza e di profittabilità di mercato, così che possono anche essere accoppiati a investimenti privati. La dimensione europea è un elemento aggiuntivo e questo mi permette di ricordare una cosa. Il fatto di avere un meccanismo per finanziare gli investimenti è importante, è una condizione necessaria ma non sufficiente. Bisogna aggiungere, questo è stato ampiamente discusso oggi dai ministri, un progresso significativo sul piano dell'allargamento ulteriore del mercato interno in settori strategici come l'energia, l'economia digitale e le riforme strutturali nei vari paesi. Quindi la dimensione europea si integra a patto che ci sia un approfondimento dell'integrazione europea. Non so se l'amico Werner vuole aggiungere qualcosa sui progetti.
Well, obviously, these projects cover quite a range of sectors which are interesting, but it is quite obvious also that some of these project areas are particularly difficult to privately finance because of long maturities and high risk inclination. So this is the reason why there is room for interference by a public bank at all. And in addition, we have to have a closer look at the risk situation. By the way, that was a different situation when we talked about the capital increase for the EU bank 3 years ago, because at that time we did not have liquidity abundantly available, which is the case today. Nowadays, the problem is not liquidity, the problem is risk-bearing capacity, and therefore we have to look at these projects. The basic idea, and therefore I welcome very much the paradigm change that has been presented also by Vice President Georgieva today, is to move EU funds, EU budget money from subsidies and grants to loans and guarantees. And that is something I've been waiting for 25 years. So I really welcome this move. And in this context, we will then have to have a close look at these projects. As I said before, being on that list is not a guarantee for being financeable. We'll have to remain very strict in the criteria to be applied on these projects, because we must maintain the credibility of the entire effort. We are not going to contribute to bubbles, as I've read in some papers over the last weekend. We are going to finance decent, viable, sustainable projects for which purely private financing is difficult in view of maturities and risks. And therefore, the inclusion of a public bank and a fund within that public bank is justifiable.
One more question.
Jorge Valero, Europolitics. Again, on this governing board for Mr. Padoan, has any member state set as a condition to have a say in the board before giving some funds to this new vehicle? And in your view, this will make sense, or this could compromise the independence of the board? And for Mr. Katainen, is there room for member states to participate in this board, or this could destroy their reputation, as you just mentioned before?
The answer to your first question is no. As far as the governance issue you raised, which is a very important one, let's not forget that a participating agency in the project, of course, is the EIB, which has already a board where member states are represented. So this will be one main channel through which member countries will contribute to the governance of the new mechanism.
Actually, the role of the board is to set the strategic areas where the FSI should invest in. So the board is not the one who is doing the individual investment decisions. Currently, there is only two stakeholders in the FSI, EIB, and Commission is representing the EU, and the two are setting the strategy, how or which areas of economy there's a need to use FSI, and then all the projects will be evaluated by professionals, and the decision making comes later on. So, in that sense, there is no risk of losing credibility.
So we are wrapping up this session.
Yes, thank you very much, Vice President Katainen and President Hoyer. I'd like to invite Vice President Dombrovskis and Commissioner Pierre Moscovici to join me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, do it next week.
Yes.
Dear Pier Carlo, honorable media representatives, first of all, I would like to start with congratulating Italy on a very well-run presidency, also on a very focused and clearly presented priorities, and as we saw, really there was a good follow-up and actually good progress in achieving the goals of Italian presidency priorities. We had good discussions today, not only on the investment plan, but also on the overall economic policy priorities. And according to the latest economical forecast, we expect all 28 EU member states to have positive growth next year, but there is a risk of low growth, which might persist in the environment of low inflation and high unemployment. So we need to act against this background, and the Commission has set out economic policy priorities in its annual growth survey. We call for targeted investment, ambitious structural reforms, and fiscal responsibility. Achieving sustainable growth and job creation is the responsibility of all of us at the European and national level, at the level of policy makers, as well as social partners. But the main responsibility for the structural reforms lies with member states, and this is actually one of the key elements to achieve jobs and growth creation. Measures to improve business environment, market functioning, public administration, and cutting red tape are best preconditions for investment to rebound. The return to sustained growth in Europe requires not only structural changes, but also fiscal responsibility. In that respect, I welcome the two agreements reached by the Council today on measures against tax avoidance. As regards annual growth survey and draft budgetary opinions, we see that several member states are at the risk of non-compliance with the Stability and Growth Pacts. These countries, including France, Italy, and Belgium, need to take measures to address this situation, and we will revisit this situation in early March, when we will have a new economic forecast projections and the results of the in-depth reviews of macroeconomic imbalances, and all procedural options are open at this stage. The European Fiscal Framework, the Stability and Growth Pact, is not an obstacle to structural reforms. The fiscal costs of many structural reforms are limited, but those reforms are often difficult from political point of view. And a crucial enabler in this respect is efficient and constructive dialogue with social partners. I have also informed the ministers on the key directions of further work, both on our governance framework and on strengthening of the economic and monetary union. The Commission has started working on guidance as of the use of flexibility within Stability and Growth Pact, and we expect to present it in early 2015. The discussions will continue with European Parliament and Council on the review of six-pack and two-pack legislation, which was also presented today to ECOFIN Council, and based on this discussion, Commission will decide on the follow-up. And we will also be reviving the debate about deepening of economic and monetary union based on the policy documents which had been previously created. So thank you very much for your attention.
Merci Pier Carlo. Je suis là pour vous parler aujourd'hui des décisions qui ont été prises dans le domaine de la fiscalité, notamment sur deux mesures qui sont d'une importance majeure pour le combat central de la Commission dans la lutte contre l'évasion fiscale. C'est pour cette Commission une priorité absolue. Et c'est ma ligne de conduite pendant les 5 ans qui viennent. D'abord, le Conseil a abouti à un accord politique sur la révision de la directive mère-fille. Il s'agit de renforcer la protection contre les pratiques fiscales abusives pour mettre en place une fiscalité des entreprises qui soit plus équitable à travers l'Europe. Comme je l'ai dit à plusieurs reprises, c'est une question qui est à la fois de justice sociale et d'efficacité économique. Je crois que nous avons aujourd'hui franchi un pas très significatif et j'en félicite la présidence italienne. Deuxièmement, le Conseil a pris une décision politique sur le renforcement de l'échange automatique d'informations entre les autorités fiscales de nos États membres. Vous savez que c'est un combat qui est mené depuis plusieurs années dans le cadre de l'OCDE, qui a été aussi promu par l'Union européenne et qui est la base d'un standard mondial proposé désormais par le G20. La décision des Européens fait en sorte que l'envergure des échanges d'informations soit la plus large possible. Elle permet à l'Europe de s'aligner d'ores et déjà sur le nouveau standard mondial d'échange automatique d'informations agréé par le G20. Et d'une certaine façon, elle vient compléter, voire remplacer à certains égards la directive sur l'épargne, qui aurait été en quelque sorte une mesure de transition, d'ouverture vers une ambition plus large. Ce sont là des avancées importantes auxquelles d'autres succéderont dans les mois qui viennent. La Commission, je le rappelle, s'est engagée à adopter une approche offensive sur le front de la fiscalité, à commencer par la directive sur l'échange automatique d'informations. Là encore, sur les tax rulings, je peux vous dire que nous présenterons cette directive dans les premiers mois de l'année 2015. Je peux aussi vous dire que l'approche de la Commission sera extrêmement extensive, à la fois sur le champ des activités concernées et sur les acteurs. En dernier lieu, il y a eu aussi aujourd'hui une discussion sur l'état d'avancement de la taxe sur les transactions financières. Comme vous le savez, la Commission n'est plus en charge de cette proposition, qui fait l'objet d'une coopération renforcée entre 11 États membres. Notre rôle est d'apporter un soutien à la fois technique et politique aux États membres pour les aider à avancer. Et puisque ça n'a pas abouti aujourd'hui, nous allons continuer à les soutenir leurs efforts pour parvenir à un accord sur une taxe qui soit à la fois réaliste et aussi la plus ambitieuse possible. J'ai noté, cher Pier Carlo, que Wolfgang Schäuble avait proposé de prendre la présidence permanente du groupe qui va travailler là-dessus. Je ne veux pas m'immiscer dans vos affaires, parce que la Commission n'est pas en première ligne. Et puisque je parle de toi, je termine en disant que je veux remercier Pier Carlo pour sa présidence très efficace du Conseil ECOFIN pendant ces 6 derniers mois. J'étais pas là pendant ces derniers mois, mais it's been a complicated period for the Italian presidency to manage, not only because of the major challenges of our common agenda, but also because of the institutional transition here in Brussels with the new Commission, which has coincided with your presidency. And although this was a transition period, I think it was really a very effective presidency. And I think that a lot has been achieved over this semester, so I want to congratulate you for that and wish you a well-deserved rest period over Christmas.
David Carretta, Radio Radicale, una domanda in italiano per il ministro Padoan a proposito degli investimenti, dei successi che lei ha rivendicato. Lei ha parlato di successi anche sugli investimenti pubblici, ma abbiamo sentito il vicepresidente Katainen parlare solo di investimenti privati e il piano Juncker si fonda su quello. Non crede che ci sia una contraddizione o è stato fatto abbastanza sugli investimenti pubblici? Une autre question en français pour le commissaire Moscovici, but also for Vice President Dombrovskis. Dans ce Conseil ECOFIN, on devait débattre aussi de l'évaluation du six-pack et du two-pack, si je me rappelle bien. Vous avez décidé de ne pas présenter un document pour modifier quelque chose. On se retrouve dans la situation où l'Eurogroupe donne des indications et les pays, le même jour ou le jour après, disent on ne va pas les suivre. L'Italie dit on ne va pas faire plus en termes budgétaires, on va seulement clarifier notre mesure. La France, on ne sait pas très bien qu'est-ce qu'elle fait. Est-ce qu'il n'y a pas besoin d'une clarté surtout pour les citoyens, pas seulement pour la grande boule bruxelloise qui suit ces affaires.
Rispondo io nell'ordine delle sue domande riguardo al ruolo degli investimenti pubblici e privati. Io non vedrei investimenti pubblici e privati come alternativi ma come complementari. Si può immaginare questo in molti modi. Uno dei modi è che per investimenti a lungo termine in infrastrutture, per esempio, il ruolo della mano pubblica è quello di addossarsi una parte di rischio che in questo momento il settore privato non può o non vuole fare, così da attivare in questo modo un investimento privato. In altri termini, come si dice in gergo, c'è un problema di fallimento del mercato in questi casi e quindi l'intervento pubblico è giustificato. Questo nuovo strumento che l'Europa ha messo in campo, questo nuovo fondo per l'investimento strategico, tra le altre cose, servirà anche a quello, oltre che a, come diceva il vicepresidente Katainen, a fornire liquidità per gli investimenti a lungo termine delle piccole e medie imprese.
Sur le two-pack et six-pack, la Commission européenne, on le sait, a présenté un rapport d'ici au 14 décembre, qui sera un rapport très factuel, très clinique. Et comme nous avons eu l'occasion déjà de le dire avec Valdis Dombrovskis, nous aurons une approche en deux temps, compte tenu aussi du caractère récent de ces dispositions et de leur mise en œuvre, qui d'abord permettra de voir ce qui fonctionne et ce qui ne fonctionnera pas, et puis plus tard, avec un peu plus de temps et un peu plus de recul, nous aurons sans aucun doute une approche plus ambitieuse. On sait aussi, et le vice-président y reviendra peut-être, il l'a annoncé la semaine dernière avec moi lors d'une audition au Parlement européen que la Commission, avec nous-mêmes, prépare une communication sur la flexibilité. Mais ce que je veux dire, il y a une deuxième question dans ce que vous évoquez, qui a été au fond traitée hier à l'Eurogroupe. C'est celle des opinions qui ont été présentées par la Commission. Ces opinions ont été clairement endossées par l'Eurogroupe. Et quand je dis endossées par l'Eurogroupe, ça veut dire qu'elles ont été aussi acceptées par les ministres. Et la Commission a un soutien unanime dans sa démarche. Cette démarche, je le rappelle, est une démarche qui a distingué plusieurs groupes de pays selon leur conformité aux règles du pacte de stabilité et de croissance. Tous les pays qui n'étaient pas en totale conformité, que nous ne les estimons pas en totale conformité, se sont engagés à prendre des mesures effectives. Nous allons travailler de manière utile dans les mois qui viennent pour d'abord confronter nos analyses lorsque c'est nécessaire, réduire les écarts lorsque c'est possible, et demander enfin des actions supplémentaires quand c'est indispensable. Et puis au bout du chemin, la Commission européenne, Valdis Dombrovskis et moi-même, nous prendrons nos responsabilités si c'est nécessaire, si nous n'avons pas pu parvenir à des accords suffisamment constructifs avec toute la palette dont nous disposons au nom du two-pack et du six-pack. Et donc les mois qui nous séparent du début mars, et notamment de la fin janvier, parce qu'il y a à ce moment-là la présentation des perspectives d'hiver de la Commission, seront des mois utiles, seront des mois de travail, seront des mois sérieux. Nous sommes là pour appliquer les règles du pacte. Nous le ferons avec, encore une fois, toutes nos responsabilités. Et c'est là-dessus que tout le monde, au fond, est d'accord. Dans le cadre de l'Eurogroupe, c'est une démarche qui est d'une très grande clarté. Toutes les options demeurent sur la table. Évidemment, nous préférons toujours un dialogue constructif.
Let me add a couple of words here, as I already stated in introductory remarks. So we presented the review of the six-pack and two-pack today to the ECOFIN, and really now we're more assessing the existing situation, and certainly the conclusion is that with the creation of six-pack and two-pack we managed to strengthen the economic governance framework, and also we managed to make sure that member states are increasingly taking their macroeconomic policies as a matter of common concern, as it should be in a currency union, because clearly problems in one member state can, especially if we talk about euro area, can quickly spill over to other member states. So there is a merit for having this macroeconomic governance framework. Currently, we are not coming up with any legislative proposals as regards review of six-pack and two-pack, but as I said once again in introductory statements, and it was confirmed by Commissioner Moscovici, that we will continue those discussions with European Parliament and the Council, and based on the results of these discussions, Commission may decide on the follow-up. And we are working also on other aspects of the macroeconomic governance within existing Stability and Growth Pact, so looking for a best use of flexibility within existing Stability and Growth Pact, which will come up in early next year, more likely than not in January. And also we would intend to revive the debate, actually more strategic debate on the future of economic and monetary union.
Thank you. Peter Spiegel from the Financial Times. A question for Commissioner Moscovici. Forgive me, a question about yesterday's proceedings. Shortly after you left us last night, Prime Minister Samaras announced he was moving up the presidential elections to next week. Today, the financial markets have reacted very badly to that. The Greek stock market is down 11%. The bond market has, the yields have gone back up to about 8%. How concerned are you about political instability in Greece in the coming weeks? And how concerned are you that it could again affect yields across the Eurozone? Does it have a contagion effect in the rest of the Euro? And I guess Mr. Dombrovskis, as the Vice President for the Euro, if you wanted to comment on that as well. Thank you.
Of course, we follow carefully the situation, but I think, first of all, that yesterday the EU group took very important decisions, which are showing as well the confidence that we have in the work done by the Greek authorities in order to reduce deficit, to reduce the fiscal gap, and to lead some reforms. And we appreciate very much, I said that this morning in the ECOFIN, the huge efforts which have been made by the governments in Greece in order to strengthen and modernize their economy. At the same time, we know that those reforms have to be pursued, that they need to do more somewhere and sometimes, and we are involved in that process. This is the reason why our experts at the technical level are back on the ground today in Athens, especially to work on the fiscal aspects of the reform in order to fill the fiscal gap, which we think is still existing. And finally, yesterday we took decisions which I think show that we want to go on to the end of the program by giving to this program an extension of 2 months, and by committing ourselves to have, after this extension, the possibility to put on the ground an ECCL. I think this is an overall process which shows from the European Union, from the Europeans, and from also the members of the Troika, the IMF and the ECB, our will to go on, to help Greece to build a stronger economy capable of creating again growth and jobs, because this is what it is about. I wanted to come back on that because I think this is the basis. Then, on this basis, the Greek authorities took their own responsibility and decided to launch a presidential election, which will start next week, I think on Wednesday the 17th. 3 rounds are there foreseen. I cannot comment about that. This is a democratic decision by the Greek authorities and the Prime Minister Samaras. I think that, well, the markets are always very sensitive to political uncertainty, and when you're in election time, you don't know for definition what is the result. But I believe that if Prime Minister Samaras chose this way, it is because he's confident in his capacity to have a successful election of a president in the weeks to come, the 2 weeks to come. So we'll see. Let's have this election show its merits, and let the Greek Parliament show its destiny. But again, I had the occasion to talk with Prime Minister Samaras. I feel that he knows where he's going. Now, we'll see. And whatever the choice is from the Greek parliament, there are ways to go on. So I feel that the markets should feel maybe a bit more secure than they showed this morning.
Certainly it's not for European Commission to comment when which elections should take place. It's decisions which are made by member states based on their constitutions. In any case, from the Commission point of view, we think there were positive conclusions yesterday in Eurogroup as regards extension of the current program by 2 months, which gives more time for negotiation to successfully conclude the current program. And we also welcome the intention of Greek authorities to actually make some kind of a precautionary arrangement, ECCL, which would ensure a smooth transition of Greece from current program to market-based financing.
Kerry, Sky Italia. A question before for Commissioner Dombrovskis. You were saying in your introductory statement again that France, Italy and Belgium are the 3 countries that need extra effort. So the Italian government has said clearly that is not intended to do any other kind of structural adjustment. Rather, will explain to the Commission that the reform undertaken until now, they could bring to a positive adjustment also because the kind of calculation that the Italian government does are different maybe from the one that the Commission is doing. So I would like to know that if it could be enough, this, for your final evaluation in March. I mean, it's okay if a country like Italy doesn't do any other structural effort. And then for Minister Padoan, in Italian if I may, se abbiamo sentito sia Dombrovskis che Moscovici parlare di questa comunicazione sulla flessibilità, un tema sicuramente molto importante anche per l'Italia, che cosa lei spera di trovare in questa comunicazione a cui la Commissione sta lavorando? Grazie.
As I stated in my introductory remarks, in fact, there are 7 member states in a risk of non-compliance with the Stability and Growth Pact, and all those member states need to take an extra effort. That's very clear. That's why there is this risk of non-compliance. And yes, we particularly outlined 3 cases with France, Italy and Belgium. In case France, it's a question of actually meeting its budget deficit reduction targets within excessive deficit procedure. In case of Italy and Belgium, it's more related with a debt rule, with sustainability of public debt. In any case, 3 countries I mentioned, France, Italy and Belgium, has sent letters to European Commission outlining their commitment as regards structural reforms and also as regards the effort needed to meet the requirements of Stability and Growth Pact. So we will certainly engage in a constructive dialogue with those member states, and I would say we have a very good working relation with Pier Carlo, and now it's really more depending on the member states how they are working towards meeting the commitments outlined in letters, and also we see in yesterday's Eurogroup's conclusion quite a clear outline of the effort taken by member states according to the Commission's estimates, and effort which is needed to be fully compliant with the Stability and Growth Pact requirements as regards medium-term objective, reaching the medium-term deficit objective. Then, of course, there is a separate discussion on a debt rule.
Sulla flessibilità, cosa io mi aspetto non ha molta importanza. Apprezzo il fatto che la Commissione si è impegnata a predisporre un rapporto sulla flessibilità che credo, ma questa è una mia congettura del tutto personale perché non ho visto nessun documento, che riguarderà il modo concreto con il quale si usa al meglio il sistema di regole che per molte volte è stato detto non deve essere cambiato, ma già contiene elementi di flessibilità. Si tratta di tradurre questo statement, questa affermazione generale in principi operativi concreti. Questo è quello che mi aspetto.
Maybe one more question.
Hi, thank you. Victoria Nandrina from the Wall Street Journal. Two very short questions. One on the FTT. Given that a deal was not agreed today and it's not going to meet the end-of-year deadline, do you think the start of 2016 is still a likely or realistic date to get the tax up and running? And the second one is on Ukraine and the chat you had about it this morning. The IMF sort of recognized that the financing needs for Ukraine are $15 billion until the first quarter of 2016. I mean, is the EU prepared to help plug this gap, and how quickly would that be? And is the figure we're looking at 2 billion, or has it changed? Thank you.
On FTT, we have committed as a group of 11 countries to continue working on the good progress that we have made on an issue which is complicated because it has to deal with both the criteria for taxation and as well as what specific assets should be taxed. And of course, it's not difficult to understand that here countries have different preferences. So we have to reconcile that. On Ukraine, we had an extensive discussion. The ministers show concern about the situation in Ukraine, are very aware of the very large financial need that the country is facing. The main point has been to reiterate that the main source of support for Ukraine should come from international organizations, the IMF, but also European resources can be mobilized if needed. Of course, this at the same time requires stronger effort from the Ukrainian authorities to implement, at best, the reforms both in fiscal and in structural domain needed to support the economy, which of course is in a very critical situation from the point of view of security, and in any extreme security situation, let me call it that way, of course, it's more difficult to implement economic reforms and fiscal discipline.
Maybe two words on those 2 points to confirm the position taken by the presidency. First, to say that, as I said a few minutes ago, it's true that the Commission is not in the front line anymore because it's not a community project. It's now a reinforced cooperation, but we are still ready to give practical, technical assistance for those countries who will continue to work on the project of an FTT. We're also politically backing this project, and I'm truly convinced that the timetable which has been foreseen to have that application by the 1st January of 2016 is realistic. And we still need to maintain that goal. It's very important politically. It's a question of as well ethics and financial rationale. On Ukraine, I this morning recalled the efforts made by the European Union. As you know, we decided a very important disbursement last week, and I said that we are now examining, in the spirit shown by Minister Padoan, the possibility of a third program of macro-financial assistance. But of course, it's linked as well to the capacity to reform of the Ukrainian authorities after a period of political instability, and also to our own capacity to find resources to finance that. But we still want to help Ukraine. We are really dedicated to the sake of this country and the Ukrainian people.
Thank you very much. I'd like to conclude this press conference, if you allow me, with one word of thanks to, first of all, to my colleagues in ECOFIN who have supported me throughout this semester, very difficult semester, but also the Commission, both the outgoing and the incoming commissioners with whom we had an excellent relationship, both at a personal and professional ground, with the European Parliament, with which we have interacted in a number of ways. Thanks to you, to the media representative, who have been very effective in communicating our work, But most of all, allow me publicly to thank my colleagues, both at the Ministry of Economics and Finance and at the permanent delegation here in Brussels. Without them, all the praise that has been directed to me, which is undeserved, goes to them. Thank you very much.